Karen's kid tries to take my epilepsy pills, and she says I should let him enjoy the candy. I was doing an intake for a new kid at the daycare I work at. Short interview, long amount of paperwork, usual bureaucratic stuff. I was in the small back office where we do all our intakes. The new kid is playing with toys in the corner, and I'm talking to his mother about allergies or whatever. The kid sneaks up behind me and pulls a zip bag out of my backpack. Now, I keep a backpack on me because I usually go right from class to work. In this backpack are baggies with extras of my epilepsy meds in case I forget to take them before I leave my apartment. The new kid looks at me and asks very sweetly, "Can I have some of this candy?" My eyes go wide and I snatch the bag from him. I'm not even sure what the side effects would have been, but god damn, I'm sure they wouldn't have been pretty. These pills are high-dose anti-epilepsy meds. I regain my composure and very calmly say, "No, kiddo, this is medicine, not candy." The kid immediately backs down, and his mother loses her ever-loving mind. "Why can't he just have one?" "What?" Her tone is getting pretty nasty now. "Just let him have one." "Mom, this is a medicine. I don't know what the side effects would be if he took one, but he doesn't have the condition it treats." She began muttering, but not being nearly as quiet as she thought she was being. Greedy mother effer. I got up from my desk and called my coworker into the room. They said, "What's up?" I said, "Can you finish this intake for me?" "Why?" "He won't let my son have candy," she said, pointing at the bag. My coworker and I have been friends for about 15 years and she knows that those are my meds. That's not candy, ma'am, it's medicine." "You're both being very rude. I'm going to complain to your manager." My coworker and I exchanged looks. My coworker says, "Her office is 2 doors up on the right. Go ahead." The entitled mother storms off dragging her nice kid. The kid is even complaining that his mum is dragging him too fast and that it hurts. She barges into my boss's office. My boss is a 67-year-old Native American woman who has stopped giving a single crap for entitled parents. I adore her. I don't even catch the whole conversation through the door, but I do catch this. My boss saying, "Ever pull that crap on one of my employees again, and CPS will hear about it." The mother bright red and embarrassed looking. What gets me is that her kid backed down almost immediately. That's the funniest part of this to me. I have a serious gut feeling that the stupid gene has a genetic habit of skipping generations. I'm now aware that my setup of keeping my pills in a zip bag is dumb though, and also likely illegal. I'm changing my setup accordingly. It's funny how regularly this level of jerk correlates with complete and utter stupidity. It's almost as if this woman had her blinders on and was so furious at her will being denied that she couldn't see the fact that under no circumstances should her little one be gobbling down mouthfuls of high-strength medication. There's a TV joke about children that if you want them to do something, you should tell them not to do it. Well, maybe we should expand it to boomer-age parents as well? Because I can't for the life of me reason anything other than a negative outcome for giving the kid the pretty meh candy, and it stands to reason that she didn't have anything smarter than gimme going on inside that vacant head of hers. The great thing about stories like these is that they provide cautionary tales on how not to be a jerk. Are you screaming at the third person in a row to try and force them to let your kid swallow back a couple of pills on someone else's prescription? Take a breather, reconsider, go back in time, and work out what made your brain this slow. Was it that you took a similar dosage at a young age? Then don't let history repeat itself. I don't work there anymore. My employer decided to convert all of a certain class of our records from paper-based files to digital. There were 3 immediate problems. Our company was not going to buy a generic system, but develop our own unique, tailored system. It was going to be done on the cheap, with net savings for record keeping from year 1. The guy in charge, let's call him Genius, always, and I mean always, thought he was the smartest guy in the room. Believe me, he wasn't. Anyway, one of the girls I worked with took on the project on the condition that she could have the next July off for her wedding and honeymoon. She worked hard, and the project was actually making progress. One of her duties was passwords, none of which could be written anywhere because Genius knew this was bad. She periodically reminded Genius about the July wedding and he told her it'd be fine, but never signed off the paperwork. Come mid-May, the project is way behind, mainly because Genius told management it could all be done in-house at negligible costs. And Genius kept changing the design every time he read a new magazine article on IT. My friend was then told 6 weeks out from her wedding that her leave was cancelled. The project took priority and she'd just have to reschedule her wedding, honeymoon, the works. Genius just could not see that this might be a problem. So she did her job, updated the passwords as required, never recorded them anywhere, again as required, and resigned without notice the last day of June. On her honeymoon, she gets a frantic call from Genius demanding all the passwords. Sorry, I don't work there anymore. Click. That's why a decade later, our company still has a few hundred electronic case files that we can't access. If you're feeling bad for Genius, I have some more horror stories of him. One of the guys in my company was finally expecting their first child after many years. Anyway, the wife, same company, different division, began bleeding and was taken to the hospital in the middle of the night. The guy rang Genius, from the emergency department by the way, to say that he couldn't come in and got this exact response. Well, how long is this all going to take? The guy told him to shove the question up his butt. Unfortunately, they lost the baby. When he did come back, Genius told the guy that the whole thing had put him, Genius, in a very difficult spot. The guy said he wasn't prepared to apologize for what happened, and he works for me now, not Genius. Oh, and Genius, he's still there. The man is technically adequate, no more, in a highly specialized field that not many, including the board, understand. But he constantly self-promotes, so the board think he's a lot better than he really is. He also surrounds himself with yes-men. If you don't actively and publicly praise his brilliance in all areas, professional and otherwise, you don't get to stay. That's why, when he took over my division, I left for a new position outside his sphere of influence. Anyhow, the whole IT thing was a disaster, lots of good money poured in after bad, until everyone involved realized that it was a lost cause and it was quietly abandoned. A younger, more naive me did expect Genius to be shown the door, but it never happened. I assumed because the board realized that they'd been idiots to allow what was always going to be a disaster to occur in the first place. I don't imagine I'm wrong in hypothesizing that he was the jerk, right? Yes, I think everything that happened to Genius was pretty well deserved. Unequivocal jerk right there, textbook example. Let me just slap a link to this video timestamp in the online dictionary under the word jerk. Honestly, that final guy was going well beyond the line of duty to take the time to call him from the emergency room, instead of just texting him or answering him once Genius called. As for the first case, that lady's delightful malicious compliance was completely justified. That man was never going to get the project finished on time or budget in a satisfactory way, and being locked out of it was possibly the best thing that could have happened for everyone's sake, including his. But let's face it, people like this never learn the right messages from these situations, and he probably just started knuckling down and incompetently micromanaging even more so as to keep a tighter grip and not let his staff teach him well-needed lessons ever again. Yet another example of why, when you want leave or something of the nature from someone like this, to put your foot down and get it in writing for when they inevitably mess up your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling an employee she can choose between demotion or termination? I own a vape shop. We're a small business, only 12 employees. One of my employees, Peggy, was supposed to open yesterday. Peggy has recently been promoted to manager after 2 solid years of good work as a cashier. I really thought she could handle the responsibility. So I wake up 3 hours after the place should have been open, and I have 22 notifications from the store Facebook page. Customers have been trying to come to shop, but the store is closed. Employees are showing up to work, but they're locked out. I call Peggy and I get no response. I text her, same thing. So I go in and open the store. An hour before her shift was supposed to be over, she calls me back. I ask her if she's okay, and she said she needed to take a mental health day and do some self-care. I'm pretty annoyed at this point, but I'm trying to be understanding, as I know how important mental health can be. So I ask her why she didn't call me as soon as she knew she needed the day off. Her response, "I don't have enough spoons in my drawer for that." Frankly, I don't know what that means. But it seems to me like she's saying she can't be trusted to handle the responsibility of opening the store in the morning. I told her that she had 2 choices. 1, go back to her old position with her old pay, or 2, I fire her completely. I gave her the choice because I kind of feel like the whole thing is my fault. I promoted her past her level of success. She was and is an amazing cashier, so I figured I'd reward that. But being good at sales doesn't really translate to being a good manager. I'd be happy to have her here doing her old job. She's calling me all sorts of ist now and saying I'm discriminating against her due to her poor mental health and her gender. None of this would have been a problem if she simply took 2 minutes to call out. I would have got up and opened the store on time. But this no-call, no-show crap is not the way to run a successful business. She's called out 6 times in 2 years and all of them were with plenty of notice. This came out of the blue. So I think I might be a jerk here because I am taking away her promotion over something she really had no control over. She's consistently been my #1 cashier and salesperson for a long time now. I think I promoted her into failure. I'd really like to have her back where she was, but at the same time, she really could have called me. So I leave it to you. Am I the jerk? Probably not. Probably. In this case, you have a job to do and seem to have given her an opportunity to excel. And even though she doesn't seem to have done anything maliciously, she was showing that she couldn't fulfill her duties or take steps to remedy the situation. Problems like this stemming from mental health are not easy calls to make. And if what you say was true and she was an exemplary employee up until her promotion, then you were making as good a guess as you could about whether she'd be a decent manager. If on previous occasions she had provided notice for her mental health days as you had implied, then why would you think otherwise this time? Sadly, this situation is likely to spiral. Demotions and her valid, if somewhat ill-advised bitterness resulting in her accusing you of having those particular biases will all in probability result in an untenable working relationship unless you can build back an understanding as to why things have to go back to the way they were. Many situations like this just poison the well to the point where it's better for both of you to move on. It might not be a jerk or not jerk situation. It might just be sad. It happens. Am I the jerk for purposefully sending my cousin the wrong timing for a movie so others could enjoy it? My 17-year-old brother Nate was diagnosed with intermittent explosive disorder when he was 12. At first, I walked on eggshells around him, but things are much better now. Most family members know and understand that IED is not just tantrums, but a serious issue. Some don't. One of my cousins, Kira, a 17-year-old girl, is one of the people who doesn't understand. Ever since my parents informed the family about Nate being diagnosed, she's done nothing but intentionally push his buttons at every family gathering, outing, or whenever we're all together. My parents have talked to my uncle and aunt about this, but they brush it off, calling it pranks. Now, my parents will not under any cost damage relations with my dad's brother and his family or my dad's other siblings. None of my other cousins like Kira or her family. We're forced to be cordial because of our parents. Kira has to be invited every time us cousins hang out together, most of the time ending with Nate being triggered by Kira. The day before yesterday, we all planned to watch a movie. Our parents knew this, so of course they told Kira's parents who told her. She messaged me and asked where and when we were all supposed to meet. My brother had been really looking forward to this movie and meeting our cousins after a few months in person. He'd also been in a really good move and I didn't want Kira to ruin it, so I did what I thought was best at the time. I gave her the wrong timing. I told my cousins and Nate what I did and they were fully on board. After the movie finished, we came out of the theater and waited for some time in the parking lot. As soon as we saw Kira pulling over, waving at us, all of us waved back with the sweetest smiles, made a run for our cars, got in, and left. As expected, when me and Nate reached home, we were immediately ambushed by our parents about why we abandoned Kira. Apparently, she had cried all the way home. My parents grounded me and Nate for 2 weeks. He surprisingly took it well and said it was worth it. The rest of my cousins were grounded as well. I did text them, telling them they could tell their parents it was my idea, but my cousins refused and reiterated what my brother had said. I thought that was the end of it, but my parents have been really hurt by this and said me and Nate humiliated them in front of Kira's parents, and that Kira has been inconsolable since. So a lot of people are wondering why I invited her rather than telling her outright not to come. I didn't invite her, my parents did. Also, if I tried to deny the invitation, then none of our aunts or uncles or my parents would have let us go in the first place. I guess I see how waiting around might have been a jerk move. Yep, you were a bit of a jerk for rubbing it in Kira's face, but it sounds like more than half the jerkery may lie directly with her. Also, if parents have to directly force the other cousins to hang out with her, then that should be a pretty massive warning sign about her behavior as well. As one commenter pointed out, the cousins were unified in thinking that 2 weeks of being grounded was worth getting away from her for one hangout. That's a massive red flag about how she makes them feel. At this age, I give kids a bit of a pass and lay a bit of blame on the parental figures who have enabled such crappy behavior. It's a bit freaking ableist to try and get the kid diagnosed with IED to harden up, rather than getting the other one to, not deliberately provoke the kid with the disorder. Although the author does mention that their parents tried to talk to Kira's, which suggests that even amongst the parents, there's a bit of an unequal dynamic, if they're unable or unwilling to get a very valid point across to them. It sucks for all these kids. Kira would probably benefit in the long run from some course correction from her parents. Half of my office's staff is quitting today. Last Thursday, my office, a dental practice in a very wealthy area of California, had a meeting and we were informed that we would only be approved for 1 day off per quarter. So, 1 day off every 3 months. None of us in the office get any benefits, no paid time off or medical, no holidays, nothing. We were also told that because we, the hygienists, are booked out so far that when we take our day off, we will have to come in early or work late to make up for the patients that we didn't see that day. Me and the other hygienists all put in our letters of resignation today. We all typed our letters and laid them on his desk. So he got back from lunch and had to read through all of the letters. My coworker told me that she saw him throw our stack of letters at the office manager while saying, "Look at this." Fortunately, hygienists are in crazy high demand in California right now, and all of us already have other job offers. In short, a boss tries to control our unpaid time off and vastly overestimates his worth. Winds up losing his whole clinical staff. Some updates for those interested. I had a letter of resignation prepared already, but I made another one at lunch and printed it out because I felt like I needed to specify that I was quitting because of the policy on unpaid overtime. And yes, I did print it out at work. Update number 2, my boss decided to act like nothing happened. He didn't mention anything or even say a word about it to me and the other staff members that were quitting. My coworker did see him toss that stack of resignation letters. The doctor and my office manager were also in a meeting by themselves at 5 p.m. He always leaves around 3:30, so it was satisfying to see him staying late to sort this out. They both gave me a death stare when I walked by the little window to the room they were in, though. For those asking, yes, I have another job already. I decided to quit Sunday night, and by Monday afternoon I had another job that's 30 minutes closer, higher pay, and I get off 2.5 hours earlier. Look, I understand how some workplaces feel they can pull stunts like this, even though it makes them terrible people for doing so. But doing this to a group of skilled workers who evidently have a wealth of other opportunities all around them seems like an absolutely stupid move. But it's clear that collectively your workplace's management are entirely in the wrong here, as well as having absolutely no good foresight about the consequences of their actions. I mean, even the bosses at distribution centers and mega corporations who flog their workers half to death only do it because they've done their cold, evil calculations and worked out that they can likely get away with it. If you're going to be this much of a jerk, you've got to be smarter about it. Sure, call the towing service. Dig your own grave. I was visiting my mother with my car, picking her up to go to a restaurant. At her residence, I had trouble finding a parking spot, so I parked my car near an entryway. Parked in quotes because I kept the car running and stayed behind the wheel, texting my mom to come out because I'm waiting for her, in case I have to move the car to let someone else pass. While I was waiting for my mum, another resident pulled up in his car and went into the entryway. I had to move the car a bit to let him in. The dude exited his car and came to me red-faced. "What do you think you're doing here? You can't park here. It's illegal." "That's why the car is running and I'm sitting inside. I'm not parking." "Like frick you are. I'm calling the tow service and you better not move." And then he went into his home. So I complied. I was teed off, but I stayed. Technically, I could have just left, driving carefully around him. He never wrote down my license plate and I didn't violate any rules, but he said not to move, so I didn't. When my mum came down, I explained the situation to her, and she agreed with me that I've not broken any laws. A few minutes later, the tow truck came. I stepped out, and with a bit of a scowl on my face, ready to clear up the misunderstanding, but instead, the tower took the initiative with a smile. "Ah, I see what's going on. You got blocked in. Let me fix that for you." And he towed the other guy's car. In the end, the angry dude had to pay to get his car back, as well as pay for the towing since he called the tow service. And I got a nice meal at a restaurant and a fun story to tell. At the end of a long day of making these videos, this is the kind of thing I love to finish on. clear, unambiguous jerk, liberal interpretation of the rules, heavy trigger finger on calling the authorities about something that didn't negatively affect him, and final, hilarious consequences for being such a jerk. Oh, and taking your mum out for a cute, cozy meal. Definitely not the jerk, author. Rest easy and thank you for your story. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.